Yo, what's going on, YouTube? We're back with another banger. And for this video, I'm going to be talking about how to watch your own replays. Um, I feel like this is something that gets asked fairly often is how do pros analyze their own replays. And it's honestly at this point become something that is second nature. So it hadn't really, that the thought hadn't really crossed my mind on doing a video like this. But alas, it's been requested, so we're gonna go ahead and do it. I have this replay that I played against Hero Marine in the recent ESL NA Cup, which was played on the new patch and the new maps. I believe I'm not allowed to share those replays as per ESL guidelines, so unfortunately I won't be able to post this replay in the description. So if you like watching Hero Marine own people, you're out of luck there. But I did stream this, and Hero Marine also streamed this. So if you also be able to watch the VOD on there. I did lose this game, obviously, but I haven't watched the replay, so I want to see maybe what I can do better. What did Gabe do that I'm not doing, and what I can take from this. So just right off the bat, a couple of things to keep in mind when watching a replay. First thing, your opponent. In my case, because I play specific players frequently, I'll have a better understanding of the player that I'm playing against while I'm loading into the game. But I understand that for some of you, you may have never played this person before, and maybe you'll never play them again. So you don't really have a preconception of how this person plays. In this case, obviously, as I said, I know I'm playing Hero Marine, and Hero Marine is somebody who can play very safely, especially because he'd be playing on ping in this game. Just lower this a little bit. So if that's the case, maybe I have a bit of an advantage ping-wise to do some better micro, some better aggressive openers, and capitalize on that. So that's the first thing. If you don't already know how your opponent plays, or maybe you've never played your opponent at all, then try to compare your openers as much as possible. So in this case, maybe actually in any matchup, really, it's possible that you get what's the word? Build order countered. There you go. It's pretty often, or it happens pretty often, where you get build order countered. But you have to be honest with yourself. Like, you can be build order countered and still adjust your build properly to where you minimize the amount of damage that gets done, if that makes sense. So if I know I'm gonna get a build, if I doing this build, I scout. Let's say I'm doing an aggressive build. I'm playing a tank drop build, and my opponent goes for a counter to a tank drop build. Let's say for some random reason, instead of building a Raven, they go tank into Viking, and that way they can push the meta back out. If that's the case, then you have to be able to scout that and then make the adjustment in the game. Yes, did you get build order countered? For sure. Your strategy is going to need to change, but that doesn't necessarily mean the game is over so long as you're scouting and making the necessary adjustments. So there will be some scenarios where maybe you all in. I go for a proxy 2 racks. My opponent goes pool first. It happens. You know what? Next game. Those kinds of games. What I'm getting at is those kinds of games, you got to be able to be honest with yourself and say either this was an entire build order counter or it was a build order counter, but there was room for an adjustment to be made. So going into this game now, with that aside, I'm going to go ahead and SCV scout. I noticed my opponent also SCV scouts, so we have similar SCV scout timings. Our depot placement, he puts his depot here. I also put my depot in a similar spot, so it seems like we both got that. And his factory is a little bit sooner than mine. So if that's the case, I'm actually curious about that, because it could be that he takes his gases sooner. And this actually, if you actually look, this is how much better Hero Marine is compared to me. We'll already start this right now. Okay. I start my depot. My depot is actually behind his depot. Do you see that? I'm missing one worker on this SCV patch right here. And now my barracks and my gas are slightly behind his. So already, because of my opener, I'm actually behind. Like literally 2 seconds I'm behind from his opener. So things are faster. Right here, his factory, 6 seconds. I'm at 5 seconds. His factory is 1 second ahead of mine. So that's a mental note for me to keep in mind, is that, okay, I could do a better job in the early game of getting better timings. So here he goes for Widowmine. Now, comparing the builds like I talked about, I went Reactor Reaper with 5 Reaper, 3 Hellion. Hero Marine's playing a pretty safe opener where he goes for the Widowmine. That's pretty smart. especially considering that he's playing on lag. And he actually puts his Hellion in the front to get better vision, so that way, as my Reaper Hellion comes up to his base, and of course, it's possible that I go around, towards the side this way or this way. But those pathways take longer time, which means if I take those pathways, there's a good chance that his Cyclone comes out already and it's right here by the time I get to his natural. And I don't want that to happen because I'm on a bit of a time crunch, right? So he scouts me here. He goes down. He positions. I tried to bait with the Widowmine, but he actually micros pretty well here. And I do split these up, but unfortunately, I will lose an extra Hellion. So I lose 2 Hellions and 1 Reaper, where I think if I micro a bit better, I probably only lose 1 Reaper and 1 Hellion and keep 1 Hellion alive, right? Because I'm going to lose 1 to the mine and 1 because I tried to drag the shot. So at this point here, I don't think I'm too behind. I'm down 2 SCVs, and that's just because I dedicated so much into Reaper Hellion. Also, I'm not building SCV, but Hero Marine is. So that's another thing to keep in mind. There, I start my worker now. But these microseconds or these seconds add up over time. And it's at my level, it's so much more crucial that if I want to compete with somebody like Gabe, these kinds of things can't happen. Look, I'm supply block now. Tank, Raven. Okay, I take map control here, which I think is good. He goes Reactor Viking. Okay, he has 2 barracks and a 3rd command center. My 3rd command center is put down. I'm about to have money for 2 barracks, but I'm down 4 workers now. So that's what I was saying, right? Earlier it was 2 workers, but now it's 4. But between that time, I got supply blocked, and there was a bit of idle time in my SCV production. So really, there's no reason for me to be already down 4 workers. Like, it makes no sense. So for me, seeing this, and of course, maybe I want to look at other games that I play, other TBT games that I play. Do I make the same mistakes? If so, that needs to be a really big part of my practice. Then I need to make sure that that doesn't happen, because there's no reason for me to be randomly down 4 SCVs when nothing has happened in the game. You see what I'm saying? So that's a really big thing. That's a really big thing. I take map control. He doesn't take map control, but he also can't because I have Reaper plus the Cyclone, and he only has a Cyclone. So that's why he's playing a bit more cautious. Here I actually misses rotation. Still have map control here. So my Marine spotters, I think, are very nice here. I think he probably could have done his a little sooner. Maybe he's being a little bit lazy. I don't know. Obviously, he's still ahead, but I do think that losing to random stuff is possible. CS 1-1 is miles ahead of mine, and now that worker deficit is getting a little bit larger. So what's going on? Well, this orbital is already done, which means he can build workers faster than I can. So there's going to be, as the game progresses, right, unless Hero Marine makes a mistake, like for example, maybe this call down will help me a little bit to catch up, Hero Marine will remain ahead on workers until, the late game. Because once you get to the later parts of the game, it starts to even out, unless, of course, engagements happen and stuff like that, then obviously that can change the tide of the game. But for now, I will be behind, but as the game progresses, it'll start to even out. So my goal, as somebody who knows that they're behind, is to either make a move and be aggressive and hope you can force a mistake from your opponent, or you try to turtle and play the game out in hopes that the leads that your opponent has even out. Here, I recognize there's minimal map vision, so I try to rotate. That Widowmine was good, so here Marine rotates back. At this point here, I'm down nearly 10 SCVs, but I'm ahead a little bit of army supply. Here when we go to this drop, the vision here is really nice. So the Cyclone cleans that up. It tempts me to scan because I'm like, oh, maybe he's attacking into me, right? I see the double medevac drop, but because my army's already been out on the map, I have a lot of opportunities here, right? My army is out on the map. Sure, maybe there's a scenario where I'm out on the map and this drop does happen actually, and it sneaks by and I don't see it. But in the specific scenario, I have a spotter and I saw it. So for future reference, for me, something I could do is maybe concentrate a little bit more vision here or here, so that doesn't happen, because it's something that could actually kill me in the scenario looking at this, right? Here, though, my army is already in position. I've seen it. So I killed both medevacs and a good amount of Marines. Maybe I didn't need to use 2 matrices there, and that might help me in this fight instead. So I think for next time, seeing the medevacs already unloading, I won't use any of my abilities, and I'll save my abilities for this kind of fight. Here, I'm actually losing too many Vikings free, but also he was ahead on Vikings, right? More Vikings for free. Right here, he lands all the matrices, and if I would have had this full energy Raven, I actually would have spammed way more turrets. But I only have 1 full energy that I'm having trouble placing, so I need to work on this as well. I ended up dropping a couple of turrets, though, and I end up actually winning this fight. So this fight, it was really nice for me. I think Gabe just misjudged the fight there. It seemed like I had my tanks were already sieged, and he was able to matrix some of them. But the thing with this is playing on the new patch now. So the thing about the new patch is the turrets die faster. So in this case, the turrets maybe in the previous patch would have actually killed a tank faster here or killed more stuff here, but you're actually able to kill him really fast now. So that could be what kind of threw him off there and judging that fight. Now that I have a lead here, okay, so I obviously took a good fight. Here Marine has no 2-2 started. I actually have 2 attacks started myself, but I'm still down about what is that? 6 workers. About 6 workers. I did start a 4th, and our 4th is around the same time. So you can see now that the game is starting to even out for me. I'm starting to pick up some sort of advantage and some sort of momentum, and that's what we were discussing earlier. And I do like this move. I think here, what I should have done was try to just go around this way instead. And then a mistake that I remembered immediately was that I kept rallying, and I should have kept my army here. I think I was like feeling it a lot. I had momentum, but you want to make sure that you're careful with that. So I should have made sure to just keep units at home, because what he ends up doing, yeah, is double drop sneak spy, and then yeah, I'm killing this base and I'm killing workers and all that good stuff. But this double drop is going to do a lot of damage, and I think he sends another medevac the other way. I could be wrong, but he walks it across the map, and then here you can see like if I maybe load up all my Marines into the medevacs, I could drop on top of these tanks, and that might have helped me. But you can see he's still producing. He's still got tanks in his base. For me, my army's kind of everywhere, right? I have so many siege tanks here, but you have to be so slow with tanks, right? When you have that many tanks, just because and here I lose a lot of Marines trying to kill that. So then as I'm actually getting kind of owned right here. He's wiped out my 3rd. He's wiped out this base. And I think that if I just didn't rally all my units across the map and I took this into consideration, I would have left a tank here. I would have had a tank in here. And I did have an army, and I still would have done the damage I did here, and the game would have progressed. Would I have won right there? No, but I still would have had some sort of advantage, and the game was definitely evening out because my upgrades got closer. But clearly, there's 2 things that are messing me up here. Number 1, my opener was still really dog, and I need to work on that because literally nothing happened, and I was still a little bit behind. And that'd probably be a big one for you guys too, is optimizing your opener, seeing those supply blocks, all that good stuff, or bad stuff rather, supply blocks, maybe lack of unit production. If I see that, that'd be my biggest focus first, and then do the strategy afterwards. So it's always going to be macro issues first, and then strategy issues. So in this case here, I took a mental note of my macro issues, and then putting that aside, then I started comparing, contrasting the strategies, builds, comparing, contrasting builds, and also decision making here. So clearly, there were some good decisions that I made, but I also could have made additional better decisions, I guess. And Gabe made the right moves here. And I mean, I would make the same moves as Gabe. They make a lot of sense to me. And I don't think I lost for any I took like a terrible fight or anything like that. I think for the most part, it was just a bit of decision making and some macro issues. But sometimes that's all it takes, right? Because Gabe is obviously very good. So yeah, I think that's the conclusion for this game. So like I said, for analyzing these games, first compare and contrast openers. Maybe think about your opponent. If you know your opponent, you kind of have already a preconception of how they play, and start to think about comparing and contrasting your macro. This person is up 10 workers compared to me, but why? Or I'm down 10 SCVs. Why am I down 10 SCVs? What's going on? And once you put that aside, once you figure out what that is, then start thinking about fights and macro, or fights, engagements, and decision making. Oh, this fight went good for me, but why did this fight go good for me? And then what can I do to maybe win this game from afterwards, or all that stuff. And the biggest part I think after all that, is just being honest with yourself. Like I was talking about at the beginning, build order counters and stuff like that. A lot of people have that as the first thing that comes to mind. Oh, clearly I was build order countered. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It definitely does happen. But besides saying, okay, I got build order countered, oftentimes you could have made an adjustment and you just either didn't scout, or you just autopiloted and made the decision anyway when you could have clearly made an adjustment. So unless it's literally fast, like 3-minute cheese, and then your opponent plays like super safe, spawning pool first, something like that. Obviously in that case, it's clearly a builder counter. Probably nothing you could have done differently besides play a macro game. But yeah, so hopefully this gives you guys a bit of an idea of how you can approach the replays. And if you guys like this kind of content, maybe I can post some more videos of me analyzing my own games. But leave a like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos.